So, planetary interaction. There have been several changes since the most recent update, and I thought I'd go through and make a few videos showing what the updates entailed. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to do the first video on just basic extraction on a single planet, extracting the primary component and turning it into a P1. So I've got a barren, and a gas command center here. I'm going to go out to a barren planet and just extract maybe some bacteria on a barren planet. So let's go ahead and undock. And we'll pull up the barren planets. So on these things, let me see if I can find a barren planet. Here is a barren planet. I'm on the test center, of course, doing this. I'm going to use the thing. So if I am looking for bacteria, I'm looking for microorganisms. Now, one of the changes that we have on this thing is on the scan system, it no longer has like guesswork for seeing exactly what the percentage density is. It's got actual numbers over here, 31%, 50, 53, and so microorganisms here is a 60%. If I click on the microorganisms here, I can see densities here. Of course, now when you first load up planetary interaction, and I refuse to call it planetary production, but planetary interaction here will have the scan resolution set at its widest. So what you want to do is pull it down to a very narrow band, and then you can just move this narrow band over to any place. Of course, right now I'm undocked. This is another thing that we've got on the new update, is that the ship modules are now available even when you're doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the ship, and I'm tethered to the Fortizar. I'm seeing that my microorganisms have a very good concentration along the tropical bands. This is equatorial, tropical, temperate. So I'm going to take a look at this and see if I can find a very strong concentration. And pulling this down, I can see I've got a strong concentration right here. And I'll show you how I set up the planetary interaction. So the first thing is you're going to build your command center. Now the command center can be placed anywhere. So once you submit and build your command center, you always want to update it. Since I have command centers upgraded to 5, I'll go ahead and do this and upgrade the command center. And this cost a little over 6 million is to do that. So I'll go back to my scan, and here's my microorganisms, and I'll come back to my area of concentration here. Now, usually what I'll do is minimize just about everything else it's not. I'll keep the overview up right here. And the very first thing that I'm going to build is the extractor. Now the extractor has like the limit on how far out you can put your extractor head. So I'll generally put this out somewhere where the extractor heads are going to be in the side. That way they're not in the way of the production centers that I have. So I'll go ahead and submit that and zoom this in. Okay. Now the way that I set this thing up is that I'll have a storage facility where all of the material is routed, and you can see that you can't put these things right over each other. So I have the exact same arrangement, and pixels matter on this thing, so get the thing as close as you can. After the storage facility, you want to do a launch pad, and the launch pad is going to go directly below this. Okay, and here's this. After that, you're going to put basic industry facilities around it, and I always put it in a hexagonal pattern here. And this is the next thing that's a change. Now you don't have to go back and click on the basic industry facility again. You can just click and it will automatically put the industry facilities around. Generally, when I'm setting up a beginning planet, I will put 7 basic industry facilities and just put them around each one of the things. Now on a barren planet, since the radius of the barren planet is very small, you can get away with putting the 8th one, and I generally put the 8th one down here. What that does is allows you to get a little bit more per day or per whatever cycle you choose to do. So I'll click the submit, and now I have all of my basic infrastructure set up. The next thing that we've got is the create link. Now, previously you could do the control click and that would bring up the creating the link. Here, if you just create the link, it's got the new little mouse cursor, and now you can just click and drag, or not really drag, but just click and then click on where you want to do this. So I'm clicking from the launch pad to each one of these things, and then I click and just make sure everything is connected and submit. Here is a very important thing. Between the extraction head and the storage facility, you want to take the one link that's right here. It's at 0%, and I'm going to click this and I'm going to upgrade this link. That's very important. Do that every single time you're doing this. Upgrade that link, because the amount of material that you're going to bring in from these extractor heads is going to be more than that particular link can handle. So what I'll do here is go ahead and install my extraction program. I'm going to click on my microorganisms, and I'm going to set this thing up, and I always set it up for 1 day and 2 hours. This is just my particular way of doing things. Okay. I will be able to set up 10 heads. You always want to have the maximum number of extractor heads that you're going to do on this thing. So at that point, I'm going to bring it over here and I'm going to set a pattern for these extractor heads. Now, a couple of things that are a little more advanced. I can set these things up very, very close to each other and just make sure that they don't overlap, or else you're going to lose a percentage here. If I set them up very close to each other, just like this in this pattern 343, and this also is in a circle packing, gives you the maximum benefit on this thing, then you will be able to extract in a very close area. Now, one other thing, and this is sort of an advanced trick that you can see, I'm not using all of this area of high concentration. And what will happen is, over the course of the 1 day, the area that I've got right in here will be decimated very, very quickly. However, if I spread the extractor heads out over this entire level and make them just a little bit wider instead of so closely packed, what will happen is that you will not use up the entire concentrated area as quickly, and you can leave these extractor heads in there for a longer period of time. So over the course of the next, say, 3, 4, maybe even 6 days, I'll be able to continue extracting off of this one area of concentration without having to move the heads. The higher the area of concentration, the longer I'll be able to leave the extractor heads alone. I'll go ahead and start this extraction. Now, when I start the extraction, I've begun this thing. Here is the other thing that we will see on this. I'll go ahead and close this out, and what I see is a little pulsating red circle around this thing, what tells me that I have not finished this. So what I'll need to do then, of course, is, since it's not routed, I click on this button and route it. So what I'll need to do is route this, and I will route it directly to the storage facility. That creates the route, and I'll submit this. So now I don't have the red circle around my extractor head, and that means that everything is working fine there. The next thing I'm going to be able to do is to set up each one of the basic industry facilities to do bacteria. And so I'll pull this over, and what's different about this is that once I select bacteria on the very first one, I'll install, it automatically sets up a destination for the finished product. I'm going to send the finished product over here to the launch pad, and I can create the route. And then once I do this, I'll select, and the bacteria is automatically selected. So install and route, create. And this happens much quicker than the previous iteration. So click, install, select the launch pad, create the route. And once you have the pattern on this thing, it happens very quickly. Install, route, create. Click, install, route, create, and submit. So now every one of these facilities are set up to build bacteria, but they don't have any material from the extractor heads being routed to it. This is how we need to do this. So click on the storage facility, and you want to take a look at the routes. Now I see that I have a certain quantity of incoming microorganisms. What I will do is click on the microorganisms and I can create the route. Now this is where CCP could have gotten a little bit better with their quality of life. Instead of having to create the route and go back to this every single time, one of the things that could have been done is to create the route and then multiple click on each one of these things to do it. You cannot do that in this case. You have to create the route for this and then create it. Notice that that sends this one to a clear circle around it, orange circle, instead of the red pulsating circle. So this one is ready. I have to then go back to the routes and I have to do this over again. Always select from the incoming microorganisms, create the route, here, create it. Here, create the route, click it. Here, create the route, and each one of these things, it will tell you when you're going to be doing that. Create the route. Here, create it, and here. That's 5 done. Here, create the route. 6. Scroll down to find the incoming, create the route to here. Down, create the route to here. Misclick. Try that one more time and go to the storage facility, come down here, microorganisms from incoming, create the route, go to here, create it. Once I click out on this thing, I see that everything is complete. Okay, once I submit, this planet is now set up. So tomorrow I can come in and then I would click on the launch pad. Now one thing that I can do, I can click on the launch pad here and then be able to drag bacteria from here to the customs office, 5% tax on that, load it up into the transport ship and tote it off. This is how you set up under the new planetary interaction system for an extraction planet. In the next video, we'll take a look at how to set up a little more advanced planet for doing some things for making fuel blocks. Okay. Thank you very much.